You ever notice how the only people with the name Zoe are on TV? What it is, Suicidalists, it is Friday and I am back like scoliosis. This week I'm going to guide you through the murky waters of cinema as we take a look at the body-snatching, time-traveling, kinda slasher movie Detention from director Joseph Kahn. But first, I have a new feature for your ass, and I want to call it
I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, Tom Savini.
So I was recently directed by a commenter on the Cinema Suicide blog to check out this video. In it, Tom Savini, master of practical special effects and bona fide icon of horror, addresses an audience at Texas Frightmare Weekend about this article he read on the internet called Tom Savini is a Dick. He goes on to explain that this article was written by some girl who, at Texas Frightmare a couple of years ago, felt that she had been snubbed at his autograph table because of something he said to one of his people that she misunderstood. This is not true, and here's why. That article was not written by some girl, it was written by me. And it didn't happen at Texas Frightmare. I've never been to Texas. It happened at the FX Toy Show in Orlando, Florida. And it didn't happen a couple of years ago. It happened back in either 98 or 99. So rather than just recount the entire sordid story here, I will instead link you down in the description to the article so you can read all about the time I met Tom Savini, and he was supremely rude to me. So, back on Christmas Eve of 2012, Tom got in touch with me every way he possibly could, through email, through comments on the Cinema Suicide blog, on Facebook. We had a really, really long Facebook discussion about this article. And he's understandably livid, too. If you Google Tom Savini, it's like 5th or 6th in the results. But he feels that this article is at risk of ruining his sterling reputation in the industry. Never mind that through his masterful work in horror movies, he has gained a massive legion of fans, and he enjoys iconic status among them. But he seems genuinely butthurt about this. Maybe I caught Tom on a bad day. I don't really know, nor will I ever, but for my story, there are a lot of comments in there about very similar encounters with Tom. But here's the thing, for every one of those bad encounters, there's somebody telling a really awesome story about how they met Tom Savini at Convention X, and it was great. So what the fuck do I know? So, Tom, I am really sorry if I hurt your feelings. I'm being serious right now. I'm not being a dick. Based on our conversation, you seem like a really nice guy. Just back then, it was 2007. I wrote that article when nobody read the blog, and I never foresaw a time when you, of all people, would actually read it. And since that time, it's kind of taken on a life of its own as people find it and have their own stories to tell. So, I'm really sorry if you're upset, but you're crazy if you think I'm taking that article down. And now, Detention. Detention's a really hard movie to put into words, but as it begins, we are introduced to a seriously heinous teenage girl who guides us through her morning and the various social rituals of the American teenager. Promptly thereafter, she is murdered by Detention's movie-within-a-movie franchise killer, Cinderella. We cut to Riley, who is much further down the high school social ladder. She is suicidal, and she is painfully aware of the world's social injustices. Riley has a crush on Clapton Davis. Clapton is the kind of smart-ass slacker type you only find in the movies, with a charisma score of over 9,000. Clapton is all over Ione, who has a really suspicious fascination with the 90s. Now, Ione used to date Billy Nolan, who is this super aggro jock who is out for Clapton's blood. And then there's Sander, who doggedly chases Riley for sex and is getting nowhere fast. Meanwhile, there is a killer on the loose who looks an awful lot like Cinderella, the killer in the movie within a movie. They're knocking off students at Grizzly Lake High, which is quickly approaching prom night. As it turns out, a couple of these people have switched bodies. A few more of them have traveled through time. Time for reality is ticking away quickly, There's an alien spacecraft that has been spotted over Grizzly Lake an awful lot, and there's also a really angry Canadian kid in school. Detention is many things at once. It's The Breakfast Club and 3 O'Clock High and 16 Candles and Back to the Future and Prom Night and Saw, all in one mind-bending movie that doesn't give a fuck about established filmmaking conventions. This movie comes from director Joseph Kahn, who prior to this directed a movie called Torque, which I describe to people usually as Mountain Dew, the motion picture. He's also directed a shitload of music videos, which raises an interesting point. Every now and then, directors of commercials and music videos are seized with delusions of grandeur, and they try to make the move from the short form to the long form, and they do this with degrees of success and failure. You get real success stories like David Fincher and Ridley Scott. You get dudes in the middle who, like Zack Snyder, can't exactly shake off their roots, but they wind up turning in a passable product anyways. And then there's Joseph Kahn, who can't seem to distinguish between a 5-minute short film about expensive champagne and exotic European sports cars and mostly naked women dancing amid a steady downpour of $100 bills and, well, a movie I might want to actually watch for a couple of hours. So call me crazy, I might get a little bored watching a movie where Kanye West shakes a $90,000 watch in my face for 90 minutes. Here's the difference with Kahn, though. He has turned in a movie that gives you a precise definition of how many fucks he gives. And I am here to tell you the answer is none. He gives no fucks. Detention doesn't make a lick of sense. None. Like at all. And this isn't to say that it's the product of a poorly written script. This was done very deliberately. Even the most vapid of summer movies follow some kind of logical thread. Like when your movie is about trucks that transform into robots and fight, there's at least a story there that you can follow. Even the most fractured of art films are about something, even when it's hard to find. Detention isn't. And this isn't to say that it's pointless and plotless. There's a story in there, but it's just a really flimsy excuse for a assault, a cynical blast in the face of every exaggerated pop cultural reference that it can get its hands on. There are more pop culture references in this movie than in the entire series run of Family Guy. It's a cruel critique of the millennial generation, a Generation X director pointing and laughing at people who actually say WTF, IRL. There's a reason you probably haven't seen this movie. It's a hard one to market. It isn't any one thing, and it co-ops a lot of bits and pieces from other trope-heavy movies. It's a visualization of Monster energy drinks, and if I can compare it to anything, it's probably closest in tone to something like Crank or Crank 2. Not that it's some kind of crazy, kinetic, violent action movie. It's just frantic in its pacing like that. Now, let me clear away any ambiguities about this review. This is not to say that this is not a good movie. It's just not going to be for everyone. The first half of the movie is this super convoluted setup that flies wildly out of control, and whether it makes any sense or not, the second half starts to reference the first half, and pieces start falling into place. It's unique, and it flies high on gleeful insanity. Now, I can say with some confidence that there's nothing else out there like this movie, because there isn't. It's full of these crazy asides and a human-fly hybrid and gory murder and a magnetic time-traveling bear. There's a million scenes that when they resolve, you'll be left saying, what? But if you've got the sense of humor for it, you'll appreciate the joke. Joseph Kahn's Detention. It is a kaleidoscope of crazy. It is a high-flying clusterfuck of day-glow proportions. Take that however you want it. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of Detention, and let me know what I should review next. Also, have you hurt Tom Savini's feelings? Has he hurt yours? Tell me about it down in the comments. And I'm also thinking about dedicating an episode a month to really old horror movies. What do you think about that? As usual, like, comment, subscribe, share this shit on Facebook, share it on Twitter, Share, share, share. Sharing is good. Sharing is caring. And I'll see you next Friday.